Hey everybody, it's Scott from Pilot Mountain Airgunner. This is something I want to do. I want to do it for a while. I decided I'm going to go ahead and start trying to do this more often because it's something that it seems a lot of people like. But I like to give shout outs to brand new channels. I'm big on, the guys that are just starting out. They have some good information, and they have a lot they can learn and a lot they can teach and so forth. And also just good hunting videos and all kinds of stuff, just airgun related, period. Airgun related, I like watching airgun, especially talking to the normal everyday guy like myself or anybody else out there. Anyway, first thing foremost, you guys need to go and check out Facebook page as well. But thank you, Lou, right here. Right here, First State Airgun. Lou sent me a shirt. I will be rocking the First State Airgun shirt. I really appreciate it, man. I really, really appreciate that. So, Lou's also got a Facebook page. He's got a really cool little show. He likes to test a lot of different guns. Different pellets and so forth. He's got a lot of brake barrels or, brake barrels and stuff that he uses. But he also has some homemade ballistics gel. He shows you how he makes his ballistics gel. And he likes to shoot the clay at the end of every show. So, go check out First State Airgun on Facebook. Like it and post your videos or whatever you want to do. Anyway, a couple more channels or a few more channels I'm going to list right down here. I'll put them down in the description on how to get to their pages and so forth. And, go check these guys out. See if you're interested. They've got some good stuff, and they've got always good stuff coming, good stuff on the way. So that's really cool and always important that to watch the smaller guys grow. I enjoy that. Okay, enough of that. What are we here for? Chronograph. Oh, chronograph. Errors. What about errors? Problems, issues. What kind of chronographs are out there? What was the first chronograph? A lot of information is going to be packed into this right here, but mainly it's going to be for the chronograph that most of us are going to use. I know they have the new radars out. Those are great. They're expensive, and that's just what it boils down to. I do this stuff. I'm on a budget. A lot of people I've talked to are on a budget. A lot of people out there can't quite afford to really go into the large market of airgun, and it is expensive, and that's just the truth. So, one thing I want to go over is a chronograph, what it is, how to use a chronograph, problems you're going to have with the chronograph, indoor and outdoor shooting. There is a definite difference. I noticed this way back when I did my first video. I talked to people about it, and I wasn't getting right readings or whatever. Depends on your lighting, so I'll go into all that. But he was correct. I wasn't getting the right readings. It's a little bit higher than what I was actually getting. So either way, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get into this. I hope you enjoy the video. I enjoyed making it, and this is good information for anybody, especially new people that don't have a chronograph and the reasons why you need a chronograph. I got all kinds of information ready for you. So thanks for watching. Here we go.
Cool. Chronograph. What is it and why you need one using air guns? Using air guns, your distance is more limited than with a firearm. Short range shooting with a firearm, you may never even need to use a chronograph. But with air guns, it becomes much more important, such as it would with long range shooting of a firearm. The ballistics coefficient of a pellet or slug are much lower than that of a firearm as well. Ballistic coefficient, aka BC, is the ability of a projectile to overcome air resistance and drag on a projectile, thus allowing it to remain more stable and stay in flight at longer distances. The higher the BC, the better. But with air guns, the BC of ammo is a lot lower than what it is of firearms, which makes it more important to an air gunner to need the use of chronographs for long range shooting. The use of a chronograph gives us, as airgunners, the needed ability to make measurements and adjust for holdover at longer ranges, much more important to get the pellet or slug to land where we want it to land. Precision shooting for shot placement is a key element of airgun hunting since the power put into game is much lower than that of a firearm. This being said, precision shots for heart, lung, and headshots into the brain for quick and instant humane kills become much more paramount when hunting with air guns and also more challenging. Now, this being said, a chronograph lets you measure the speed of the pellet or slug as it leaves the barrel. This information, in conjunction with the information of the weight and BC of the pellets or slug and environmental factors such as barometric pressure, will let you start mapping out the projected flight path of the projectile. The speed of the projectile is always going to be given in feet per second here in the United States, or meters per second for the rest of the world. This is known as your velocity. When you buy an air gun, you can never go by what the manufacturers put on the box for the speed of the gun. It's almost never correct since most manufacturers, they use the lightest weight pellet and even unleaded pellets to get their velocities. They do this to make sales, to make the gun look better and faster than what they really are. This will almost never be the speed you're going to get with the lead you'll be using in real world hunting and shooting. It'll be a much heavier lead. This plus many other factors come in play to get the speed of the gun. The truth is, with air guns, unless you're shooting slugs with a slug barrel or liner, too much speed's a bad thing. It throws the pellet off due to its low BC. The truth is, a speed from around 880 feet per second to about 915 feet per second seems to be a sweet spot for most air guns, especially pre-charged pneumatic or PCP air guns. So the 1100 feet per second printed on the box, it really wouldn't do you much good anyway. Okay, so now you kind of know what a chronograph is. It measures the speed of your bullet. This will help you out with your ballistics and figuring out where to aim. First chronograph that was made was known as the cannonball pendulum. It was made in 1942 by a guy named Benjamin Robbins. He was the first one that invented the first ballistic pendulum. Basically, is a cannonball that hangs down and you shoot it, and through some math, the swing of the pendulum could return the momentum of the projectile. You divide that by the mass of the projectile and you get your velocity. Now, by 1808, there was a different one that came out. It was called the rotating shaft. It was a rotating shaft on paper discs on it. And basically what you would do is shoot those paper discs, and by the difference as they spin and you shoot, the angular difference of where the projectile landed, you could calculate your velocity. This, of course, later on was replaced by the electromagnetic clockwork mechanism that stopped and started as the bullet passed through two screens with fine wires suspended from them. Okay, the first type I'm going to go over, and the one I'm going to be go over most in this video because most people are on the budget where they can afford this, these types of chronographs. The optical chronograph. Now this is basically, it's a chronograph where your pellet or your slug will pass over two sensors, usually known as sky screens. Once it passes over the first one and the second one, point A and point B, it'll measure the speed and the difference. The speed equals the distance divided by the time. Will give you your actual speed of it. These are the most common used, and this is what I'll be using basically a lot in this video. Now the next would be a magnetic, a company called MagnetoSpeed, or the MagnetoSpeed chronograph came out here. I'm not exactly how long it's been out, but either way, it uses the magnetic field to track and calculate the speed of the bullet. The math is basically the same. The mechanism for recording the time is a little bit different. Now, one thing you need to note with one of the magnetic type is when using the MagnetoSpeed, don't zero with it, because your point of impact will change, or your POI, using one of these types. Now the next type, which used to be, the military used them, extremely expensive, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but nowadays with the technology we have, would be the Doppler radar, or just the radar type. You'll see it out on the market everywhere. FX has a new one out, and this basically is such as sound of something that's moving. It measures the distance. If you're standing and a car goes past you from where you're at to, say, 100 yards away, it reads that sound, and seems to be extremely accurate. It will give back the reading that you're looking for. Now, exactly the type that you want to use, it all depends on your budget. Another one I did want to mention and go over is known as the infrared. Now, a lot of these are ones that are used on the indoor ranges, or people will make boxes out of them so they can shoot through them. You cannot use the optical type, because you have to have lighting, unless you have lighting set up in your box, which is something else that I'll go over in this video. But if you're going to shoot indoors and you can afford it or whatever, that would probably be your best bet, would be the infrared. But for most of us out here using the optical, I'm going to base this video pretty much on the optical, and reasons you're going to get errors and so forth, ways to stop the errors, ways to read indoors, ways to read outdoors, differences between speeds from indoors and outdoors, different lighting, and so forth.
Alright, so here we go. Basically, a chronograph, the optical chronograph, this is what I use, the Caldwell Ballistic Precision chronograph. I got this, off Amazon. They're about $83. But basically all it is two optical sensors, which are right here on the ends. They're called sky screens. Your sky screens here, they have a little screen on them, and there's a digital timers in here, and it basically reads the speed from this to this timer and lets you know how fast your pellet's going. So that being said, I don't know, most of these are all the same. When it comes to these, I'll go over this real quick. This one's just simply a these here are called diffusers. These are your diffuser rods, also guide wires they'll call them. But you have a screen here in the front, your display screen, and you'll also hear these called projectile sensors as well. So your sensors right here. Now most of these type of chronographs are used for natural or incandescent light. Now you're going to get your best readings in even lighting, and what I found is LED lights seem to be the best. Now these here, actually they're little hat lights. That's what they are. I got these for $1. And what I do with mine is I'll show you here. I have them in like this. Put them sideways,
oh, if I can get it to fit. They'll lay in there sideways, and then I can tape them on like this, and then I'll slip my LED light, hat light, right onto it so it's shining over the sensor. This works very well, doesn't cause any problems. On top of that, I'll use my flashlight. Also, this one here uses LED light, so I'll put it over on the side to shine through it, plus these lights, and they work great. Of course, the best lights, you know, that you can use, most people aren't going to have these, are right here. There you go. There's your best lighting. I really wouldn't suggest this, just because of the expense. You can buy LED lights at the dollar store. This is for indoor gardens and stuff for the chickens too. We have chickens, but works great. But also, these seem to work fantastic. I have a different kind. It's older, and it puts off more of a red light. These don't put off that much of a red light. You can see a red tint, I do believe, a light red tint, but they're very, very even light. And these are what I first used. I had one where half of the light was, one half of the side was out, so I used it, and I also used the flashlight, which uses LED lights, and that was how I was able to start getting really good readings indoors. Now, you really don't have to do that. All you have to do is go to the dollar store. Now I don't use anything but my flashlight and dollar LED lights that I got from, you can pick up from a dollar store or whatever. The puck lights are usually the best and easiest to get a hold of. So you don't have to go to this extent, because these, I don't know exactly, I can't remember what the price of them are, but they're not cheap to buy, and I wouldn't definitely go buy any just unless you're going to be doing massive testing or something like that. And of course, growing indoor gardens and microgreens and stuff like that, I wouldn't really suggest that. But LED lights, that's your best bet right there. That'll be okay. Overcast conditions are going to be your best for getting readings with one of these. These do not like direct sunlight. They work completely on shadows. How shadows, your pellet, the projectile, is going to move through these sensors, or go through here. It's going to go across the sensors. It's reading the shadow. With a real bright sunlight on it, it can't stop and mess up. It will stop and mess up the shadow. So overcast skies are your best way to get readings, or if it's real sunny out, you gotta definitely use your diffusers. But if your diffusers don't work, say this right here is a building, and it's putting off a shadow over in this direction, because the sun would be over here. Okay, what you would do is put the chronograph in the shadow with nothing above it, so it's able to catch the sky clearly, but it's not getting direct sunlight, and they'll work very well like that. Don't put them under a tree. If you put them under a tree, all the different shading that they get from the limbs, that will also cause you to get bad readings. Also, you want to avoid sunrise, sunset. These are very low light conditions. Also, the angle of the sun causes a major issue with these. The sky screens that I just mentioned, you can clean these. I clean them with a Q-tip. Get down in there and just clean them off, just with a Q-tip or something, and you're not going to have a problem. They do get dusty. If you go out and use them and you don't clean them, they actually will definitely cause you reading problems. Now, this is a major issue that I'm guilty of, and almost all of us are guilty of, especially first starting with the chronograph. Right here, this tool right here, extremely, I got this at the dollar store for $1. Can't beat that. What you're going to have your chronograph sitting on, make sure it is level. Make sure your chronograph itself is level. Make sure your gun that you're going to shoot with is level. The reason being is if you're at an angle one way or another, this way, from to this point to this point is actually taking longer or shorter depending on the distance. Now if your gun's pointing in this way and you're shooting straight across, you're fine. But say you've got it up here and you're shooting down at an angle. This could add, you know, extra ½ inch of distance, and then your reading's going to be off. It doesn't sound like much, but the way a chronograph works is it's your velocity equals your distance in feet divided by the time, and that equals your distance in inches divided by 12 divided by the time. Okay, so for instance, right here in the example that I'm going to show you, you have formula A chronograph uses to calculate velocity, or your feet per second, equals your distance in feet divided by your time, and that equals your distance in inches divided by 12. That's if this to this, which a lot of them are 12 inches apart from each other. This also I can measure with this, and this one here is right at 12 inches. Now what happens when you're shooting at an angle or you're tilted? Now what happens may not seem that big of a deal, but if you'll look at my chart here, you can see that your velocity, if you're shooting level, is 0.001111 would equal 900 feet per second, and that would be perfectly level and a correct reading. But if you're tilting, say from the top of your one diffuser and down toward the chronograph, and you add as much as a ½ inch to the distance, you can see on B here I added a ½ inch, which is 12.5 inches divided by 12 divided by 0.001111, which is the amount of time it takes for the pellet to get from one sensor to the other. By adding that ½ inch, you are now 38 feet per second off. That's a huge difference. It is 938, and that's due to the ½ inch distance from the pellet has to travel due to the angle. Now, even if it's only 12.2 inches, less than a ¼ inch, that divided by 12 divided by 0.001111 equals 915 feet per second. Okay, that's 15 feet per second, not that bad. You know, you can kind of work with that, but you get out to 100 yards and you're going to have a mess. You're not going to be able to set your scope up right. So you have to make sure you have everything level. That's going to make a huge difference. Alright, with an air gun, you're usually not going to have a problem with muzzle blast. I usually shoot real close up on it so that way I can get the closest reading. With the firearm, you got to worry about muzzle blast. Now if you're using a big bore air gun, that's different, like the new Hudson pile driver, you know, or an Air Force gun. You're going to have to get back some, and you can add that distance into your reading. The average reading on that is about 3/4 of a mile per hour, or 0.75. So say you were using the pile driver, you scooch back 15-20 yards, go in that range, 20 yards to keep from having the muzzle blast blow your chronograph off the table that it's sitting on. You take the 20 and multiply it times 0.75 or 15 or whatever you're at, and that should give you a difference when you're doing your calculations as far as your feet back, or that you're shooting the rifle. So you ain't got to worry about muzzle blast. But you know, for everybody else, 177, 22, 25, or whatever that doesn't have a strong enough muzzle blast to worry about, I really don't worry about that. Another major issue is reflective surfaces. Reflective surfaces, even white walls, concrete, outside, anything that reflects will change that shadow that goes across your sensors, and it will definitely mess them up. Of course, if you're using a tripod and you have it set up on a tripod, make sure it's a good stable and not a real wobbly tripod. That'll cause a lot of issues. But batteries, that's a big thing. A lot of us have a habit
of leaving the batteries on when you get done with the chronograph, forgetting to turn it off. It's a big deal and big problem. A lot of people will go and have theirs hardwired to where they can plug it in the wall. But another issue would be the reflective surface I just talked about. To be able to cure that, you can put like pieces of cardboard, lay them in here against these, paint them black, and that'll stop shadows from coming in from the sides, and that'll help you a whole lot. Okay, another major problem is when you're shooting with one of these things, it's hard to shoot low. A lot of people shoot their chronograph all the time. A lot of people want to shoot it because they get errors, and they're not using these techniques. They're not basically using the right lighting. Don't shoot your chronograph. Also, shooting low, and it's easier with an air gun. I can get down here low and shoot, and I'm not worried about it too much. But understand that you also, when you're looking through your scope and your barrel of where it's at, usually 1.5 to 2 inches, mine set at 2 inches, is the distance from the barrel to the center of the barrel to the center of your scope. Now that means your barrel is going to be down here and your scope is going to be up here. So you're going to be looking through this up here, but if you get down here too low and you're looking down here, your barrel is going to be down here, and bam, you're going to hit your chronograph. So that's another thing you might want to do. Make sure that you keep it up high enough around the center spot so it's going to be shooting a little bit lower, and the lower it is, the easier it is for the sensors to pick up. Another thing I found out with your target, or whatever your pellet catch is behind it that you're shooting at, have it backed up a little bit. The example that I have with a BB gun, there was quite a few differences that I had, or issues that I had, because I had it set up close on it, and every time I would shoot, if one would bounce off the target and come back across this sensor, it wouldn't read right. So have your target go back to where, if you're using something like I was just using the little Daisy Buck, and on every now and then a BB would hit in where the other BBs and stuff had went into it, and it would bounce back across my sensor, and that would give me a error reading it every time. Now another thing you can use, if you're using fluorescent lights, a lot of people will use fluorescent lights. They'll build a box, and this was I was mentioned about the infrared chronographs, and put their chronograph inside it and have a target in there, so that's where they do all their shooting at. As long as you have LED lights, you're good. But if you're using fluorescent lights, if you've seen them, they've got the little plastic screens that go over them, and that's to spread the light out. Fluorescent lights, they've got a flicker to them. You may not always see them, but a lot of times you'll notice that you go anywhere, you can notice the flickering of the lights. That creates a major issue with these. So if you have fluorescent lights, what you would get is like one of those panels that would go up over the lights, the plastic sheeting. You can buy the plastic sheets, and you can lay it flat on top of your rods here, or build something to hold it over it, shine the light on it, and those will spread out the light and give it more even lighting, and you'll be able to use that. Of course, in today's world, why not? You know, just get the little round hockey puck, they call them puck lights, look like a hockey puck. Put those on your diffusers, or something like I have here with the hockey pucks. Stick them on there, and they can shine directly onto the sensors, and it doesn't create an issue. Okay, that's going to be my information on the chronograph. I didn't try not to make this too long. I really appreciate you watching. I hope you got some good information out of it. I hope it helps a lot of you out there. It took me a little bit of learning, and it'll take anybody a little bit of learning to trying to get some knowledge on how to do stuff. I tried to include in this video as much of the things that I've learned and found over time to make everything easier for me, and it definitely has made everything easier. Thanks for watching, and I'm out of here.